Hello, my fellow hunters. Today we experience... Oh yes, let's have a look at who, in my humble opinion, are the 5 most powerful Elder Dragons. Majestic, terrifying, beautiful. Walking natural disasters each and every one, but what exactly do I mean by power? Because it's a vague word, right? Who can level a mountain with the most ease? Who can beat all the others in a fight? Whose destructive force covers the most area? There's a lot of metrics here, so what is power?
Power is power.
Alright, did you need to put in? I mean, like, don't you have children to look after? So I am gonna go with the following scenario, because I think it's a fun one. Suddenly, in the middle of a bustling city, an Elder Dragon appears. What causes the greatest loss of life and the greatest total destruction before it's brought down? If indeed it is bring down a bull. So, without further ado, let's get into this. At number 5... I am gonna put Vitalis here. I know, a lot of you might be like, whoa.
Now don't go and get it twisted, cause White Vitalis is the strongest that ever existed. But if we're gonna have fun in this video of mine, you gotta listen to my reason and my rhyme.
Yeah, that was, why am I like this? White Vitalis then, amongst monsters, he is king's terror is stricken into all who lay upon Vitalis. Subservience are mad, fleeing the result of an encounter. But I'll be honest, I think Vitalis is kinda overrated, in the sense that no, in 2 days he cannot raise the entire planet in fire. No, his wing beats do not crush buildings with every downstroke. That's Pokedex entry level. Oh, look at this dragon. It could probably, it could kill the world. Yeah, it could kill the world. I'll write that down. It can't. It's a strong animal, but an animal nonetheless. And even with his crimson lightning storms punching holes in buildings and crowds alike, I think his PKPS rate, people killed per second, is just gonna be too low to win a competition like this. And I'm making a video where the discussion of how fast a monster can kill crowds of innocents is a valid and indeed needed discussion topic. Today is a good day. But look, Vitalis's best confirmed achievement is bringing low the kingdom of Shrade. He decimated it in a hard-fought battle, medieval-ish with a few little stronger fantasy elements tech. And if that was an actual fight for him, well, clearly he can't do all of the mystical shenanigans legend says he can, and therefore, in a more modern setting, he's not going to suddenly perform better, he's obviously going to perform worse. So the question then becomes, can he be brought down? Immunity to bullets, I think is fair to say, given what he can take from hunters, but when we start moving up to high-grade explosives, especially if you get a lucky shot down his gob. Actually, Rain of Fire is a pretty apt example of a Vitalis invasion en masse, and it's a real proper good film. Like, what if a whole nest of dragons gets uncovered and essentially dragon apocalypse? It's criminally underrated, and I would suggest that eventually, before he can do too much lasting irreparable destruction, he is gonna die. And yeah, he can grow back from a single scale, supposedly, but he's not exactly gonna have time to do that. So yeah, I think Vitalis, surprisingly perhaps, won't do that good of a job here. But I'd love to hear your opinion, of course. Discussion is everything here, and I love you guys to muck in, and we can have some talky in the comments, and I'm like, sometimes, oh yeah, that's a good point. So, you know, bring it. In at number 4 then, maybe again a little bit controversially, is Zeno Jiva. Let's ignore the whole is Zeno a baby argument, and take current Zeno that we know. And even that one, well, it's a scary prospect unleashed on a city. So his blue energy, laser, fire.
Fire in my laser!
I'm glad that came up again. So, it melts the crystal in the recess, which is infused with Elder Dragon energy. So, at minimum, we're talking 1700 to 2000 degrees Celsius being pelted out from his beam. There's also a hefty amount of force there. It's essentially a pressurized air cannon that also kind of melts flesh off bone. He could stand still, fire the laser, and spin in a circle and kind of achieve something like this. Which already I think you can agree is quite a good ways to go on the cause more destruction before you're stopped competition. And hell, even if we weren't focusing this on a specific challenge, Zeno is up there in general monster power rankings, easily top 10 if we ignore the awful designs in Frontier, and believe me, I do. Either way, Xeno'jiiva has so much potential, but it was cut short by us, well, cutting him short. He's strong enough that he could bulldoze through buildings, and large enough that that would cause enough structural damage to likely cause it to collapse. He can plunge his claw into crystal like it's sand and rip it free, which is a hell of an impressive strength feat. And while I think he would be killed actually really easily, he doesn't have any kind of scaly defense to speak of. He just has size and the heat emanating off him. I think explosions would generate huge gouts of flesh cleaved off him, and really his death time would be swift. He'd also probably die, or at least be immobilized by a skyscraper falling on him, as actually would Vitalis, thinking about it. But I do think before he is killed relatively unceremoniously, he would cause quite the lasting impact. So moving up then again, this one, we'll see, number 3, Shigeru Magala. So, a smaller, less imposing monster himself. If he was just up to his own power, he's not doing that much, not even compared to a lot of non-Elder Dragons, but we have to think about the wild card that is the Frenzy Virus. Now, we know that hunters don't go all rage zombie when they get Frenzy Virus. Sometimes you mess your words up, and you do another take. Sometimes I wanna die. So, you have to consider the Frenzy Virus. On humans, there's no actually, I'm gonna fucking leave it in. I want you to know that, believe me or not, I never script these. I just kinda know what I sort of want to say in my head, and I just kinda say what feels right. So, you would be surprised, or maybe not surprised, how often things like that happen that you never... I cut out so much failure. Resistant then compared to monsters, but it still has an effect. The first of which is you take more damage from his attacks, which translated to real life means... what? His claws feel sharper? The pain is intensified? That one may be likely, but it's a little bit of a wishy-washy, intangible thing to try and evaluate from gameplay mechanics to not. So, I want to focus on the second effect of the Frenzy Virus. So, he will spread it massively, like a fucking virus. And I imagine you'd have a human population frenzied up very quickly in very large numbers. So what's gonna happen? Well, the other effect of the frenzy is it blocks natural healing. That's the wording, the terminology, and this might sound a little bit technicality, but let's be honest, technical victories are of course the best, and loopholes are fun for all the family. I would interpret that as a inability for your body to self-repair. Like, you get a cut, it doesn't clot, it just keeps bleeding. Maybe even as far as your immune system shuts down, or at least severely weakens. Which I don't think is a huge stretch, honestly. I think that is a fair way to interpret that mechanic to real life. You have a population of potentially hundreds of thousands to millions not able to heal from essentially anything, which is a recipe for disaster. So in the time it would take him to be brought down, and he would, he is as easy to kill, at least as Zeno, maybe a little bit tougher on the scale wise, but smaller, and he himself couldn't do that much damage in the time he would have before he was dealt with. He's not that destructive in of himself, but if we don't have a time limit here and we look months after his little jaunt in the town, I think you'd start to see a absolutely gargantuan loss of life, slowly, depressingly, watching as one by one you and your loved ones drop to the most tragic injuries and ills. Though admittedly it might take a lot longer than a few months to have a significant effect, and it might be curable, so wild card?
Guys, why aren't the brakes working?
Because I cut the brakes! Wild card, bitches! Yeah!
I'm also assuming, I suppose, that human can spread it to human by proximity, like it works like an actual virus. So look, feel free to, well, call bullshit on this, but I think it's a fairly fine interpretation. I think it's certainly believable. And if I can't use the wheel as the wildcard here, then it would go to Alatreon, and to a lesser extent, Diamorales. The other Black Dragons, they of course need a mention. Alatreon is the prime candidate, because while physically he can't do much more than Vitalis, his elemental instability, the fact that just by existing he causes chaotic weather storms and essentially is a living Armageddon generator, well, that's gonna pull a number. So if you're like, Frenzy, come on, then give this spot to Alatreon. Next up then, we start to get to, alright, size matters. You might be able to guess 2 and 1. 2 is Zora Magdaros. And look, in game, Zora Magdaros is so pathetic. Like, come on, like, I feel bad. Like, when we hunt Zora Magdaros, it really is the...
How many times do we have to teach you this lesson, old man?
I love the young people.
But I don't think he gets the respect he deserves, because lore-wise, he's actually ridiculous in sheer bulk, volume, thickness. He is arguably the largest monster. It's not really fightable or killable in a traditional sense. Even something like Dalamadur is at least huntable normally. Zora just isn't, and that says a lot. He can fire meteoric blasts of lava-y explosion fire death out of his inferno of a body, which is decimating by itself. Meters thick rock protecting him, lava consistently spewing out of every pore. He's Monster Hunter Godzilla, and we've got enough freaking examples across multiple mediums of what giant kaiju-esque creatures do to cities. Zora would be no different. He would cause, just by going for a light morning stroll, almost irreparable infrastructure damage. Like, he is arguably one of the strongest monsters full stop in any situation. Fighting him is near impossible for really most things. Like, I can't think of many creatures that could actually give him a go. Vitalis, because of, oh, it's Vitalis, and then something equally with as much size, of which there's like maybe 2-3 contenders, and even then, they would struggle. Zora is ridiculous, and people, I feel like, just aren't taking that in or really caring because of how lame and pointless his related hunts are in the game, and I just don't think Zora will be that remembered, and that's really tragic. He wouldn't specifically go for people. I think the actual loss of life would be quite low for Zora, but he more than makes up for it in just the path, the swath of carnage he'd cause by walking. I mean, you know what a volcano does to a city? This one doesn't stop and it moves. Bringing him down would be a fucking challenge too, because the shell of rock is going to give you some pause. The size of him is going to give you some pause. You're going to have to send aircraft to do it. You're going to have jets unloading payloads onto him. And yeah, a good couple missiles to the face probably will start to see him be like, oh, stop it, fine. And maybe, you know, if you hit his eye, you can probably get in there and bring him low. But look, it's gonna be a challenge. I think he will get miles of distance before he runs out of the strength to move from sustained bombardments and various manners of attacks, and that is something to be recognized. I really think he is, well, the second worst monster that could possibly be put into our world. The first, then, it's Dalamadur. Not the most shocking, but honestly the most sensible. He has the size advantage of Zora to delete structures left and right without even really notice he's doing it. But he is aggressive, he is hungry, and he will hunt and devour people like a whale taking in a mouthful of krill. Meteors raining from the sky, hell on earth, burning through the streets. A beamy breath to rival the one from Zeno, the body shape to capitalize on this new environment that he finds himself in, slithering up the tallest buildings, crushing them in his immense coils of muscle, able to snatch aircraft out the air and then dive down, burrowing underground, cleaving away huge chasms, causing structural failure and collapse across the city. And actually fighting this thing, while technically easier to kill on a amount of damage needed due compared to Zora, getting those hits in becomes a lot harder. He is faster, he's going to be elusive, especially with the digging, and actually finding that one hit you need that does enough critical damage to put this mighty beast down is going to be like a hill in a haystack. Oh honey, where's my hill? It might be in this haystack. Fucking hell! And ultimately, he just brings the best skill set for this. He's got the attitude, the power, the defense, burrowing much more effective than flying. He just is the total city destroying package, especially if we believe the Rotten Vale calculations from the corpses to put a fully grown adult at 7 miles long. Needless to say, yeah, that'll do it. But even the 450 meter long one has this in the bag. I really don't see much competing with him on a, oh my god, we're fucked, if it found itself in the real world. I mean, they're said to be able to disintegrate mountains with a single twitch of their bodies, and while that's, let's be honest, a little bit exaggerated, they do carve out mountains. That's why the spear tip crag, well, looks like a spear tip. So ultimately, the largest monster is the most destructive and powerful. And that might be a conclusion that didn't need a video. Out of literally every monster across the series, the worst one to attack any settlement, it has to be a Dalamadur. Like, he could swallow Vitalis in one mouthful. And to me, that says he might even be in line for that throne. So there you go, everybody. Let me know what you think. Do you agree? What are your choices for worst to be wrought on the earth? There might be something I've missed. I'm like, oh yeah, god, no, that would be disastrous. It's entirely possible, but I think it's a fun little thought experiment, and it's what I like to do. So for now, like and enjoy this, subscribe for more. Please share it around. Hit that notification bell, because YouTube's really trying its best to kill me right now. And once again, huge thank you to Mr. DigDugDack for letting me use some footage so you don't have to stare at a black screen. Linked below. And I will see you soon. Goodbye. this up so you patrons know that I love you even though the outro's no longer that kind of relevant. But the new one's being worked on and it's gonna be a truly badass song, and don't worry, I won't be doing any rapping on it. I'm gonna go now. This was shit.